Hi, welcome back to our Channel 9 live stream of the PyData conference, our third day. I am joined now by you think as a SQL guy I would know how to write joins, right?
Right.
Joined by Brian Granger, who's on the steering committee for the Jupyter Lab project, but that's only one of your accomplishments. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Brian Granger. I'm a physics professor at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, and I've been involved in Jupyter and IPython development since 2005, and I've worked on a number of different parts of those projects. And in addition to that, I'm involved in a couple of other open source projects. One of those is the Altair Python package for statistical visualization.
All right, so you're here today. You've got a talk at 2 o'clock, I think?
Yes.
I can't remember, is that in McKinley or is that going to be?
Yeah, that will be live streamed as well.
So that will be live streamed as well?
Yeah.
Okay, well then you can just treat this as a rehearsal.
Exactly.
Right? Ultimately we want to talk about Jupyter Lab, we want to talk about that project, but let's sort of set the stage. What is Jupyter Lab's raison d'etre? I mean, why Jupyter Lab?
Yeah, so the original classic Jupyter notebook came out in 2011, and we've had many years now to watch how users are using Jupyter. In addition to that, we've gained a lot of experience in developing rich front-end web applications, and it was really the confluence of sort of us feeling like we needed a more modern architecture for development. A lot has changed since 2011 from the front-end development perspective, and then also hearing from users for a long period of time about what sort of delighted them about the classic Jupyter notebook and what things continued to be really painful for them. And so Jupyter Lab was really an opportunity to address both the users' experience and then also our experience in developing and maintaining the code base.
Right. So some of the things that the users liked or didn't like or felt limited by were things like multiple documents, right?
Yeah, so we did a user experience survey back in 2015 with the help of IBM, and one of probably the most important thing we heard was that they loved notebooks and they didn't want that to go away. And that's not trivial because in Jupyter Lab we could have re-envisioned everything. Right. And so notebooks are still there. They look and feel and behave just like Jupyter notebooks. Other things we heard from them is they wanted more flexible ways of combining the different building blocks. So in Jupyter Lab, you can have text editors, terminals, notebooks, output areas, code consoles, all on the same page in a flexible UI layout system where you can rearrange things however you need. And then having them on one page allows us to build integration points between them. So if you're in a markdown file and there's a triple backtick code block, you can actually just hit Shift-Enter, and it will send it to a code console where you can run the code.
Right. So much more like an IDE.
It really is. And when people see Jupyter Lab, they asked us, is this an IDE? Or they'll say, hey, that's an IDE. And our typical answer is, yes, if the I means interactive.
Okay.
And so the big difference between Jupyter Lab and a traditional IDE is that we're really focused on enabling users to write code interactively. So it's data visualization, statistical analysis, working with data and code interactively.
Okay. So what's the state of the project right now? It's in beta, or it's about to be in beta?
Yeah, we are aiming to have a beta release of Jupyter Lab out in the next few weeks. And the beta is going to be, from a user's perspective, usable for daily work. Most of the main features that users would expect to be there are there, and then a lot more beyond that. The 1.0 release we're hoping to have out later this year. That will be API stable from the development and extension perspective.
Okay. So one question I had from a friend when I mentioned I was going to be chatting with you about this was what about source control?
Yeah, so within Jupyter Lab. Yeah, so that was a big thing we heard from users in that UX survey we did was they want to version control things, including notebooks.
Right.
And there's really two things we have in the works on that. One is a new project called NBDime for notebook diff and merge.
Okay.
That provides a number of things. Some of those are hooks for Git to more intelligently diff and merge notebooks.
Okay.
So if you enable those Git hooks, you can start to version control notebooks without any problem. And it has a lot of sort of things that you'd want for working with notebooks. So you can tell it, I want to diff merge these notebooks, but ignoring output. Just pay attention to source code.
Right.
So that's one aspect. And then the second is that we have some interns this summer at Cal Poly building a Jupyter Lab extension for Git and GitHub. And so that will provide users with an actual user interface inside Jupyter Lab.
Ah, nice.
Not that dissimilar from the type of functionality that VS Code provides,
Right,
for example.
right.
And we're just starting with that. I saw that I guess it's initially usable as of today, but it's going to be a few months before we're sort of releasing it and recommending users to use that. But it's definitely something that our users, and actually we ourselves, run into all the time. We use Jupyter to give presentations and teach classes, and the version control story is a really important part of this.
Sure, sure. What else is on the roadmap?
Yeah, another big thing that we've been working on for a couple of years now is real-time collaboration. And if you think about timescales for collaboration, something like GitHub works really well. Git and GitHub, traditional version control systems, work well on longer timescales. So, hours to days to weeks to months time frames. For shorter time frames, collaboration at UX like Google Drive has been something that all of us use all the time.
Sure.
But if you're writing code, there traditionally hasn't been much in the way of real-time collaboration for code, and in particular for notebooks. And part of the design of Jupyter Lab was to build in the extension points needed to add real-time collaboration. And a postdoc of ours at Berkeley, Ian Rose, has built an initial version of that based on the Google Real-Time API. And so we'll be demoing that today. So in Jupyter Lab, there's a Google Drive icon. You can click on it, authenticate, you see your Google Drive. You can then have notebooks, text editor, text documents, and do real-time collaboration. There's persistent chat per document. And it basically the experience is a lot like Google Drive, but with notebooks, live code, and so on.
All right, so we've got real-time collaboration coming. You've got version control and source code en route. What else is coming?
Yeah, one of the big things that we've tried to abstract in a clean way in Jupyter Lab is the idea of extensions. People want to customize Jupyter Lab. And we have a nice extension system for Jupyter Lab based on NPM packages. Basically, a Jupyter Lab extension is an NPM package with a small amount of metadata in the package JSON file. One example of how we're starting to use that, and other people are starting to use that, is to write extensions that handle particular file types. So we ourselves or other people have written file handlers for JSON files. So if you double click on a JSON file, you can either edit it as JSON or get a nice tree view of that. GeoJSON files, if you open those, you're going to see a nice leaflet-based Slippy map of the data set. CSV files, the JavaScript library that we've based Jupyter Lab on is sort of part of the Jupyter ecosystem. It's called Phosphor.js, and Chris Colbert, the lead of Phosphor, has written a very nice data grid. And so in Jupyter Lab, you can double click on a CSV file with millions of rows, and it opens and scrolls and works perfectly fine.
Sorry, I'm giving you my attention, but I'm noticing that they're setting up, so we should probably think about wrapping up. So you're going to talk more and show us this in demos?
Yeah, we'll have demos of all this at 2 p.m. today. So.
All right. Well, you mentioned your son is watching.
Yes.
I don't know if my daughter's watching. Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah. Hi, Reed. I hope you're having a good day, and I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
All right.
We'll sign off here and resume the live stream shortly.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.